Well, it's time now for Media Watch, and Shona Bhattacharya is with us in the studio for that. It's good to see you, Shona.
Hey, Laura.
And we're going to start right here in France. The President, Emmanuel Macron, had a plan, and that was to create the official post of First Lady for his wife, Brigitte Macron. However, not everyone is so enthused about the plan.
That's right. Now, France's First Lady doesn't have an official role, though she does at times represent the president in social gatherings. That's why Emmanuel Macron wants to, quote, clarify the First Lady's role with a budget for staff and activities, though not a salary. As it stands, the First Lady gets an office, a handful of staff, and security guards. The budget for these amenities is taken out of the operational costs of the Élysée Palace. Now, the petition that you mentioned was launched 2 weeks ago on change.org, and it's gathered more than 220,000 signatures. Its author, a man by the name of Thierry Paul Valette, calls himself an artist and a committed citizen. He argues that no one voted for her, they voted for her husband, and that taxpayers should not be paying for a budget for her. Now, according to this May 2016 poll, only 31% of French people are in favor of an official role for the First Lady. Now, it's also a jarring proposition for many people because of Macron's desire to, quote, moralize French political life. This Wednesday, MPs are set to hold a final vote on the law, and if it goes through, ministers, MPs, and local elected officials will no longer be able to employ close family members, which is spouses, concubines.
Which has been a big problem for French politicians in
it
the past,
has,
hasn't it?
Exactly, right, with the candidate François Fillon.
Yeah.
Parents and children will also be excluded. That is now, by comparison, the only country to have formally created a role for its First Lady is the United States, and even there, what was actually voted into law in the 1970s is the office of the First Lady. So she's allowed security, an office in the White House, and staff, which actually sounds a lot like what Emmanuel Macron wants for France. Now, lastly, according to a sociologist at the Sorbonne, sorry, that was a little too fast.
Well,
here we are, sociologists at the Sorbonne. If French people are so against giving First Ladies a budget, it's because queens had a political role before the French Revolution, and one of the ideals of the French Revolution was to get rid of privileges.
Ah, we're going all the way back to Marie Antoinette there.
Apparently, yes, that's what she says.
It's a grudge that they haven't got rid of yet. Okay. Well, speaking of presidents, Donald Trump, of course, promised during his election campaign that he would not go on holiday or on vacation, as he called it, if he is elected president. However, he is, isn't he, for more than 2 weeks?
That's right. Now, 17 days is exactly how many days he's taken. And 17 days is a lot for the United States. He'll be spending it at one of his golf clubs in New Jersey. And though Trump promises this will be a, quote, working vacation, and by working, we presume he includes tweeting, the Washington Post reports that by the end of August, Trump will have taken more vacation days than Obama in his first year in office. Now, the
17 days in New Jersey.
Yes,
That's
at his own golf club in New Jersey. Now, by far the most scathing critique of Trump's time so far in office is in this Newsweek cover, the title Lazy Boy, accompanied by this cover photo. It reads, Donald Trump is bored and tired. Imagine how bad he'd feel if he did any work. 40 days at golf clubs and 0 policies of major legislation. Now,
ouch.
In this CNN editorial called Why Trump Vacation Critics Are Dead Wrong, Dean Obadiah writes that we should be thankful, actually, that the president is giving us 17 days of peace and quiet, that instead of aging in office, Trump is aging all of us with his alarming policies, his alarming tweets, and his alarming gaffes. Now, of course, that peace and quiet is relative. Trump just put out the 2nd episode of Real News. That is a 1-minute 30 news bulletin that he posted on his website, on his Facebook page. It's a bulletin that showcases his achievements. And last week, the bulletin's first edition was presented by Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law. But this week, a former CNN anchor stepped in. Here she is. Kayleigh McEnany can be seen just one day after resigning, I should say, from CNN, where she had distinguished herself as a strong Trump supporter. Now, it is important to note that according to Donald Trump's Facebook post, the video was paid for by Donald J. Trump for President, a company that he owns, and not the White House.
Not by the taxpayers. In other words,
not by the taxpayers.
Interesting. Okay. Finally, we touched on this briefly in business, but a bit more on what's going on at Google.
Yeah.
Some red faces there because a private document ended up leaking and going viral, didn't it? And some dodgy views, some people might say, about diversity.
It went viral after going internally viral inside Google. Google is very vocal about promoting diversity. It even has a website, a webpage that details the gender and ethnicities of its staff. But an engineer there wrote a manifesto urging, quote, ideological diversity instead, and that's where the problem starts. Now, this person who remains anonymous, how do I get out of this?
Yeah, hit the blue one, I would say.
No, I don't know what this means. Maybe this will go.
There we go.
There we go. Now, this person who remains anonymous penned a 3,000-word document that claims, quote, biological causes are the reason why women are underrepresented at the company.
I.e. women have children.
Right. And that also, their brains are just wired
right. Okay.
differently.
Yeah.
That men actually have a higher drive for status. It also accuses Google of creating an ideological echo chamber. And the document in its entirety was published on Gizmodo, on this website. Now, Google's vice president of diversity responded to the memo, but it seems to have struck a chord. This writer at Quartz says the discussion around diversity and free speech is increasingly defined by people on the ideological extremes, and disagreeing with someone who is, open a biased, blind argument is politically incorrect. Now, it's important to remember, lastly, that while Google is, making a big deal about wanting to be diverse, it actually has major issues. Google is under investigation currently by the U.S. government for underpaying women employees, and sexism and sexual harassment is a real problem in Silicon Valley.
So, a lot of work to do there. All right, Shona, thanks very much indeed. Shona Bhattacharya there.